Honorable Judge James Bianco, how do I sum up my daughter in a letter letting you know what a gift she was to her family and her friends as well as to her community? On May 31st, 1991, Amber Rose and Emily Ann came into this world 8 weeks premature. I was told by the doctor I could lose one or even both of them because they were so early. Amber was referred to as Twin A. Even though Twin A is usually the stronger of the two, Amber could not breathe on her own and was on a ventilator for several weeks and did not open her eyes for quite some time. I did not get to hold Amber for about 2 or 3 weeks until the day I went home from the hospital because just being held would cause her stress. Amber was a fighter from the start. She had a love of life, and 5.5 weeks after she was born, Amber came home from the neonatal intensive care unit. Amber was a bright and loving child. She was always smiling or laughing, always on the go and involved with friends, sports, competitions, and more. Amber was only here for 20 short years, but she didn't waste a moment. She grasped every opportunity that came her way. Amber was a straight A student and a gifted artist in a variety of medium. She graduated with honors as well as a 4.12 grade point average, achieving and being presented with more awards than I can begin to list throughout her academic career. Amber was also gifted in writing and won a speech competition in 5th grade. She went on to win a competition in high school for designing a t-shirt to raise funds for a school play. She was very involved with dance and comp squad in her younger years, and her team won many awards and trophies. Amber was always modest and humble about her achievements, as well as her gifts and talents. When Amber graduated middle school, she and a few other students were awarded straight A from Life awards, earning A's from kindergarten through middle school, never receiving even a B. Through high school, she was on the softball team as well as the volleyball team, still carrying a straight A report card with AP classes, even while working part-time, and still finding time for friends and family. Amber went directly to Otis College of Art and Design the following fall after graduating high school. After only one semester, Amber had to put that dream on hold due to financial challenges, even though Amber did receive some scholarship assistance. During her brief attendance at Otis, she competed in a window design contest for Halloween, and the team Amber was on took second place. Even after only one semester at Otis, Amber left an impression and is fondly remembered. At the young age of 20, Amber was working a good job, contributing towards rent and other costs of the household, as well as saving towards a car, and then by herself, saving enough to get a fairly new one without a cosigner and make the payments all on her own. Amber was very driven and goal-oriented. She had hopes and dreams for a good future. She was bright and ambitious enough to have every hope of a bright and successful future, as well as the reality of one. Unfortunately, Amber's paths crossed with the defendant when she had to put college on hold. He managed to alienate her from her friends and family, manipulate her and suck the life out of her, and then end her life in less than a year, forbidding her to do the things she loved most or be with her friends and family because of his own jealousy and insecurities. My daughter was no longer full of life and smiling or ambitiously moving towards her goals in life. Like a true predator, the defendant soon took over Amber's car and her cell phone, taking her freedom and independence away since he could not provide these things for himself, hence gaining more control over her. Amber was in the process of breaking things off with the defendant, and his response to this was to threaten Amber as well as threaten harm on her family. There are text messages from Amber's phone as well as video from the phone showing how threatening the defendant was, along with a comment of good on video when Amber was choking and saying, "I'm dying." The defendant was also threatening and disrespectful at times to family, as well as putting a knife in a closet door in their bedroom. Amber came home with a black eye. The defendant's ex-girlfriend was blamed for it, claiming Amber got it at the Little Rock, and yet the owner-manager knows nothing about it, even though the girl was supposedly kicked out. An ex-girlfriend of the defendant was also blamed for Amber's windshield getting smashed while parked when the defendant was working. It is my sincere belief the defendant lost his temper both times. Amber hadn't seen much of the defendant just prior to his birthday, and she had no plans of going out then. I can only conclude the defendant used guilt of his birthday to get to see Amber. On December 14th, 2011, my family received the most horrific call a family can ever get. This is Northridge Hospital. Your daughter is in ICU. Get her fast. She may not make it. The 30-mile drive to the hospital is nothing more than a blur. Why? How? When? What happened? The first time I saw Amber in the ICU, while it was a shock, she looked like she was sleeping. She had no visual injuries and looked like she was peacefully dreaming, other than the 16 IV bags and bottles of medication and a ventilator along with an ambu collar around her neck. Seeing Amber like this made me realize it was very serious. However, seeing her as if she were only sleeping makes the mind not grasp exactly how critical things are. My family and I were at the hospital from December 14 to December 20, and believe me when I say it felt more like weeks. 5 days before Christmas, my daughter Amber, at the age of 20, was sent to the morgue and given a coroner's case number, 2011-08283. My daughter laid on a cold slab waiting for an autopsy until 2 days after Christmas. We were unable to bury her until January 5th, 2012. To be quite honest, there are no words in the human language to convey the sheer grief and pain I feel as a mother. The frustration and feeling of being helpless when your child needs you most, and yet there is nothing I can do for her. Nothing. Nothing at all. I see Amber's siblings, my children at such a young age, to lose their sister and have no idea how painful that must be. Because I lost a brother when he was 48 to cancer, not 20 to a drunk driver. As a mother, I would gladly bear their pain, but I cannot. Again, I am helpless and can do nothing. I look at the pain my father must feel to now bury a grandchild after already burying a child, a spouse, and every one of his own siblings. I feel helpless, for again, I can do nothing to soften or lessen the pain. I've been on medication since a day or two after Amber left the hospital because I felt as if I would have a stroke or a heart attack. Now that it's been almost 150 days since Amber being pronounced legally brain dead in the state of California, I find it even harder to cope with each passing day. I either sleep too much or don't sleep at all. I learned I talk in my sleep and call out Amber's name. I will never be the same again. A part of me will forever be missing, no matter how well I seem to be doing in others' eyes. I have had a hard time eating and I have lost weight. I get confused and disoriented easily. I didn't drive for over a month and don't like being in a car at all after this has happened. My daughter Amber will not be returning ever again. Every day, every holiday, we will be reminded in some way, big or small. Every May 31st, Amber will be missing, and Emily will forever be what is now called a twinless twin. I will never sit proudly at an Otis graduation for Amber. I will never get to see what a wonderful, loving wife or mother Amber could have become. I will never get to see her dreams come true, or draw another picture, or do another amazing tattoo, or dress in 40s style and go to a car show with her friends. I will never hear her sing lullabies to her children. Amber will have no new dreams, or new goals, or new accomplishments because of the fatal crash that took her life. We as a family have been forever altered, not by our own doing, but by another's choices. Amber's life was taken in a matter of moments. Amber paid the price of death. The family is sentenced to a life sentence without her. The defendant made a choice to drink and then drive. At his age, he should have been more than aware it is not only against the law, but very dangerous to others as well. This was not a college hazing or fraternity prank. He wasn't forced to drink or take the drugs before he decided to drive my daughter's car with her in it. DUI incidences and the repercussions of driving and drinking is not a new concept. The defendant has been blatantly driving around with a suspended driver's license for, I believe, over 5 years, and that shows no regard for the law. AB 808, Steve Amber's bill, was signed into law in 2008, and since the defendant has been avoiding his previous problems with the law and never reinstated his privilege to drive, he was never warned of this law. Isn't it ironic, by having previous legal problems, he now faces the minimum charges and not the maximum of second-degree murder? He changed his story as to what happened that night several times, including trying to say Amber was driving. Does the defendant not realize the paramedics took him out of the driver's seat and from behind the steering wheel of the car? The defendant's lack of remorse, let alone being sorry for what he did, is beyond pitiful. He gave the wrong apartment number to the police for Amber's residence, withheld phone numbers so the family could not be contacted after the crash. If you drink and drive and someone dies, it should be second-degree murder. People know innocent people can die. This is not news. The fact he hasn't signed a Watson murder law advisement is only because he's never been caught or renewed his license. The fact he chose to drink, chose to drive, and did those things even with a suspended license shows no regard for the law or human life. The defendant chose to drive very shortly after consuming alcohol, not waiting for the effects to wear off, and had drugs in his system. That shows no regard for life. He was speeding in a residential neighborhood. Again, no regard for life or the law. And he chose to do these things. He was not forced to drink, do drugs, drive, or speed. The fact there were no skid marks at the scene of the crash shows he was so intoxicated he never even tried to stop. I respectfully ask the court, if this was your child or your loved one, do you feel the penalties are enough? Amber was with child, something I had to read in her chart. It was never told to the family. I know legally speaking the defendant isn't accountable for the unborn child. Sadly, even though the pregnancy was medically detectable, the defendant is not legally chargeable. My daughter is gone forever. There is no undoing what the defendant has done. Yet his friends and family have the nerve to openly complain they didn't get to visit him and he should be set free. People also have the nerve to say bleep Amber's family or anyone who has something negative to say about the defendant. It's hard enough to lose a child. Now we have the criminal aspect to go through, and the defendant wants leniency. We will live with this the rest of our lives. Every day we are without Amber. Yet the family of the defendant still gets visits, phone calls, letters, etc. These are things we will never get again. Our lives, our family structure, and our history and our future has forever changed because of the reckless, selfish, fatal choices the defendant made that night. The end result is my daughter Amber is dead because of the defendant's actions. The defendant claimed to be engaged to my daughter. It was more like him staking claim on her, while keeping his status single, not even in a relationship. There was no ring, no announcement, and they never lived together. Amber was trying to leave the defendant. To hear the court warn the defendant, if you do this again and someone dies, you will be charged with murder, is like putting a knife in my heart. It makes me feel like my daughter was a practice drill or a learning experience. To be possibly given leniency this time, yet a harsher penalty next time, means another mother might be standing before the court experiencing the same indescribable pain and grief I am. The court now has the opportunity to keep our community safe as well as send a message. The choices the defendant made are unacceptable. The court also has the ability to have leniency on the defendant and risk another mother or family be giving a statement once again as the same defendant gets harsher charges because he was previously warned. Amber's life was not lost. It was taken by someone who made a choice. I made a choice to have a child. I named her Amber Rose. Like the golden essence of our lives, she was growing up into a talented, loving young lady. In a matter of moments, a bad and fatal choice by the defendant took away all those good choices forever. In the words of our 34th president, Dwight Eisenhower, there is no tragedy in life like the death of a child. Things never get back to the way they were.